Before we dive into the analysis itself, let's start with a brief overview of the film for those who haven't watched it. The film being analyzed was created as a teaser, or trailer, or pilot for the Chinese animated series To Be Hero X. The short film features the main character, a superhero with the ability to switch between being in the 2D dimension or 3D dimension with the snap of his fingers, fighting off a horde of enemies. What made the film special? Why am I analyzing it? The trailer did an extraordinary job of switching between distinct mediums seamlessly, without breaking the momentum of the fight. The fight itself had smooth choreography that was easy to follow for the audience while still being engaging. This raised the question of today's analysis. How do you maintain good choreography as you're changing between distinct mediums? What made this film's fight scene easy to follow? To answer this question, I have broken down how the film achieves this into 6 distinct steps or techniques, and what it achieves. The first is starting with a principal establishing shot to familiarize the audience with the entire fight setting. Second is establishing distinct environment landmarks. These serve as the audience's mind map as the fight scene occurs. Third is to keep the landmark angles consistent, providing a sense of familiarity as the fight progresses and complicates over time. Fourth is maintaining a stable focal point with high contrast in the midst of dynamic action. This helps prevent dizziness and loss of focus. Fifth is foreshadowing motion, which prepares the viewer for the next action, preventing confusion as the fight progresses. Sixth is preserving the characters' performances, which keeps the momentum across the mediums. Once the audience is introduced with the characters of the film, the main character in the suit and the evil men in hats, the camera pans the entire alleyway, starting with the start point where the character is to the end point where the horde of enemies are coming from. The audience is given a full snapshot of the battlegrounds before the fight occurs, helping them establish the footing of the fight scene. Throughout the fight scene, there are distinct environment landmarks: the 24-hour sign, the edge of the alleyway, the graffiti scribbles on the walls, and the front door, just to name a few. No matter how much the camera rotates, spins, pans, or transitions, one of these 5 landmarks is always visible on the frame. This helps the audience keep track of the character's position as the medium shifts between 2D and 3D. They act as the audience's visual mind map, orienting the viewer within the fight as the actions unfold. With the 24-hour sign here, we can see it behind the main character, and when the dimension shift occurs, no matter how much the camera pans for dramatic effect, the 24-hour sign is still there, grounding the viewer. No matter where you look at and how many style switches happen, the edge of the alleyway is still visible in all these shots, making the fight scene easy to follow in the film while maintaining audience engagement. Even here, we start seeing the door, and then when the switching happens to side view, we see the graffiti. When the characters get knocked, we're back to seeing the door, so we know where the bad guys tumbled and can follow along with the fight as the protagonist is snapping. Whenever the door is shown in the film, it's always in front-facing view. Whether the fight is framed from the goon's perspective or the protagonist, the door's perspective is consistent, reinforcing the audience's spatial awareness of the fight. The alleyway corner, for the most part, shows up in 3/4 view, indicating the fight will be switching directions as the protagonist moves towards the next turns. And the graffiti is always shown in side view. This acts as a subtle way to reorient the audience on where the fight is after complex action sequences. This next point is for film clips with busy action. By busy action, I mean shots where the camera rotates, spins, twists, or lots of VFX, impact frames, or medium switching occurs in quick succession to keep the combat fresh and engaging. See these shots right now? What do they all have in common? Well, the first, the protagonist's white suit serves as a visual anchor amongst the chaotic environment. No matter how complex the background becomes or how complex the opponent's moves are, the audience instinctively knows to always look for the white suit. Second, the protagonist's movements are significantly slower than that of the background. This allows viewers time to process the fight, making it more legible and engaging. For shots with consecutive impact frames, the main character would always remain in the center of the shot. The audience's eyes naturally track the action without feeling overwhelmed or disoriented as the medium switches. As the medium switch, having subtle hints on the character's next movement or direction they plan on walking to helps maintain the audience's engagement and not have them snap out of the action due to confusion. In this film, this is done in a variety of ways. First is camera work, where the camera pans subtly to the direction the protagonist will be moving in. In the first clip here, the camera pans a little to the right as the character fights rightwards, whereas in this clip, the camera moves up and the right as well to match the background rushing in that same direction, while also hinting that he will soon be taking the fight to the next turn. Second is using visible lines to indicate where the character will move next. In the background here, the graffiti has an arrow pointing to the left, which is carried across the neon diverging lines as the character fights to the left. The sword here guides the eyes on where the character is and where the horde of enemies have flung to before he snaps all of them away. In this shot, there's a literal arrow indicating where the character will move next as the camera rotates. Third is using the character's body and head animation to naturally guide the audience's attention and foreshadow the next movement. Across all shots where the character is snapping his fingers, the action he performs continues across both mediums. In this shot, his arms remain up in a snapping position in 3D and slowly moves down as the medium switches. Here he walks back, and when the medium switches to 2D, he remains walking back as he dodges. Here the goons are still chasing the character and completing their punches as the hero continues to move back. Regardless of whether the fight transitions from 2D to 3D or incorporates stylized effects, the character's body language, rhythm, and performances on all these clips are never interrupted, keeping the momentum of the fight consistent as the mediums switch back and forth. The transitions feel seamless, and the energy of the scene never falters or drops.